The math, the data strongly suggests that we humans are in big trouble. Actually, not to beat around the bush, it really tells us that we're fucked, and that we're continuing to fuck shit up as fast as we can. There's only one wild card, one variable in this equation, and that's you and me and our ability to change. Our ability to choose to change.
I'm so insanely lucky, so blessed to call this place home. This stunningly beautiful, rugged and yet mild place, this fertile paradise of milk and honey. A land of volcanoes and trees, of stunning coastlines and great mountain ranges. Te Waiponamu, the South Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Nested into the arms of the dividing mountain range at the northern tip of the South Island is the Motueka region. This is us, a few k's out of Motueka in the Motiri, where we have been creating a life of peace and cooperation for 80 years.
Kia ora, hi, I'm Che. I'm a member of Riverside community. I'm also a third generation product of this cultural experiment. In this series I want to explore what it is to live in community and how we might live differently on this planet. Because we really need to live differently on this planet. Riverside community was set up because the founders of this community fundamentally understood that if you're going to live in competition, then you're going to get war. What they didn't understand, which is becoming increasingly obvious to us, is that to live in competition also leads to the destruction of everything. It's a race. There's no win state. It's not like a board game. But to keep playing the game, you have to get bigger, you have to get more efficient, you have to keep growing. That data I mentioned, that math that shows that we're in deep shit, well, what it's showing us is that we're on the upswing of an exponential growth curve. The human organism, growing at a rate of 2% per year, has a doubling time of around 35 years. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't mean anything, just words. Well, if you want to know what we're up against, if you want to be strategic in this world, then you really need to understand what this means, what exponential growth actually is. There's a thought experiment which really helped me drop in and understand what exponential growth is, what we're up against. You have a pond, and you put a floating leaf into this pond. Each day this leaf produces a new leaf. So you have a doubling of leaves each day. So day 1 you have 1, day 2 you have 2, day 3 you have 4, day 4 you have 8, etc., etc. Now, on day 100, the pond is completely full of leaves. The question is, on what day was the pond half full? Yeah, you get it? This is not linear growth you're dealing with. This is another beast altogether. All these problems we're coming up against, these challenges, these planetary boundaries, soil degradation and water pollution, planetary warming, biodiversity loss, resource scarcity, these are not things from the past that we're dealing with now. These are things that we are doing to this planet, right here, right now. And we're not doing them just a little bit faster. We're doing them exponentially faster. In fact, we're doing them as fast as we possibly can. Did you ever stop to consider why? Why are we doing this? Why are we living this way? Why are we extracting and using stuff up as fast as we possibly can, with no consideration for the future, no consideration for our own children? And could we do it differently? The simple answer to why, and it is a simple answer, is that we live in competition, we live in rivalry. This means that we all have to maximize our ROI, our return on investment. That's money, work, property, agency, vote, in order to keep playing the game. That's as individuals, as families, as companies, as countries, as trading blocks. We all have to grow. Even just money in the bank at 3% interest will double your investment in 24 years. Collectively, this means that the whole human organism, that's us and all our stuff, has a doubling time of a little over 30 years. And none of this growth is sustainable. That means it does not sustain, it cannot continue. And yet, this system has to grow, or it falls over. And just to hammer home how mind-bogglingly insane this is, each 30-year growth period is the equivalent of everything before it, forever. And the next section is the equivalent of that section plus everything before it, forever. What's our role in this? What's our personal responsibility? It's all ours. There's no one doing this to us. There's no they. We are doing this to us. We are creating this predicament. Through each of us pursuing our own individual interests, collectively, we are creating this nightmare, this predicament. There's nothing of this system that can get us out of this predicament. The government can't do anything because they are of this system. They represent us. And if we're not growing because they are being considerate of something, then we vote them out, which is what's just happened. The last government was being considerate of some things, like the environment, for instance. And we voted them out because it was undermining our leverage. So the number one thing that any government has voted on is GDP. That's the measure. It's a measure of growth. It's actually a measure of growth. Can you imagine what the world would be like if this incredible windfall of practically free energy in the form of fossil fuels had landed into a system that wasn't based on competition, on rivalry? Nope, you can't. Because to think outside of this paradigm, let alone act outside of it, is practically impossible. This is all we know. This is what we've evolved with. So I get it. You might as well put your money into the stock market casino or buy that third house because as far as we know, this is the only game in town. And what else are you going to do? Grow fucking vegetables? That looks like hard work. But on the other hand, you get to have 3 spoons of sugar in your coffee and still look like this dude when you're well into your 70s.
You know, there's a lot of area of society where we are not competent to change it. But you can ensure that a certain body of knowledge and ecological practices will survive in the future. And you have to be at the right place to do it, and it's often not something you can do as an individual. You need a village to support your work. So that's one aspect of why I am here. I decided quite early, arriving in New Zealand 20 years ago, that this was the place where I wanted to stay, and not America, and not France. It's a relatively quiet society, and it is under the rule of law. It is not precipitating itself into some kind of major political crisis. That was my choice for New Zealand. The choice for the community was I can work there. Those are people I can work with. I want to create a site that is so good in a sense that it is motivating for people to work there, to continue working here long in the future. The effort of creating a French intensive garden is not an individual effort, it is a generation-long effort. And I am interested really in creating an integrated garden, a garden that functions well integrated with the hydrology of the place, with the native plant, with plants that are necessary to sustain the garden, like bamboo. So I see myself, as just a part in this thing, passing on, or preserving, maintaining, improving towards the future a patch of soil, which of course, with its connection to the larger land management of Riverside, which involve farm, forestry, regeneration of soil, regeneration of wetland, and my part is just that little garden in the center somewhere. My perception of the greater world has always been more ecological than political. What I see is a problem coming, and I used to be part of the Club of Rome organization. So I have been a pessimist since about 1969. and most of my pessimism might be amply confirmed. The problem that I see is the lack of community building. The dissociation of community worldwide into not so much individualism, but just not wanting to participate. The government will provide. We don't have to help our neighbor. We don't have to fix the road. We don't have to do anything. We plant trees. And we get a lot of that, people who are recreationing through their life. You can have a garden as an individual, but a collective garden is much more powerful. It transmits information, it maintains information, it develops a capacity for people to make decisions, to observe things. It provides an educational setup for children. It provides a model for adults, and it provides food. The bottom line is it provides food. As a community, we are more open to people. We are quite open to people coming and learning and participating. And I am a well-trained gardener. I have been a teacher. I have been a lot of things. So my body of knowledge is really large. And it goes from ecological knowledge to practical horticulture to the more offbeat method that are off the track from the mainstream horticulture. What we are trying at this time is to expand the number of people who are able to be responsible in a garden. Really what we need is to spread the capacity to the entire village, as well as the willingness, the sense of not ownership obviously, but belonging actually. The sense of the garden belonging and belonging to the garden. I came to Riverside because it was the most effective place for me to be effective. That's
What a beautiful man. Thank you, Jaques. Thank you for exemplifying everything that I think this world needs more of. Thank you for being in service to those around you and to life itself. This is what the world needs. This is what it's going to take from each and every one of us. This is the level of change required if we are to change anything. And if we want to be sustainable, we have to change everything. And it'll be so much better, so much healthier, so much more easeful, grounded and centered, so much more fun. At this point, I feel the need to mention our other master gardener and garden master, Maren. She's the boss. She didn't want to be on the internet, but I hope you'll forgive me. Thank you, Maren. Love you heaps.